wait to see what Eric is about to show you. We're super excited. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, I'm going to get started here. So it's just going to be me and Kim for a while. And Kim, I'm going to try to not talk super fast, but there it is. So today I want to tell you a story. Today I'm going to talk to you about how better together AWS SAM and AWS CDK. Now, before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. Again, I'm a principal developer advocate for serverless at AWS. I've been a solutions architect forever. I'm a father of 5. That is not a typo. That is the real thing. Now, real quick, before I continue, I need to give you some of the rules here when I'm talking. Now, this isn't a live session, and rules may be a little strong, but maybe guidelines to understand what I'm saying. Because I like to use my hands a lot, and it's kind of confusing. So here's the rules. Number 1, this is any number I want it to be. I promise you, I'm going to hold this up and say 5 kids, a table for 7, 99 bottles of Diet Dr. Pepper on the wall, whatever. So you got to listen to what I'm saying and not what I'm holding up. And that's just it. That's just it. These are thumbs. I do this all the time. Hey, how you doing? Hey, And these are quotes, not apostrophes. And I know that. So I use that all the time. The other day I was working. So there's the rules. There's the guidelines that'll help you understand. So back to about me. I'm a father of 5. I'm a Diet Dr. Pepper and pizza fanatic. If you follow me on Twitter, which I encourage you to do at EDJ Geek, you'll hear a lot about that. I'm a drummer. I used to say musician, but a lot of people say nope, just a drummer. And I also started the hashtag serverless for everyone because I do believe in serverless for everyone and helping folks understand serverless. And I am an AWS SAM fanatic. And I know you might be saying to yourself right now, whoa, wait a minute. This is a CDK Day presentation. Yes, but I'm going to talk about SAM. In fact, I'm going to tell you a love story. Today, we're going to do a love story about 2 frameworks. Let's get started. In the early days, right, there were developers and they wanted to build serverless applications. Now, I say early days, and when serverless really came around, it's 2014, and so that's early to my kids, but for me, that's just yesterday, right? But they wanted to build serverless applications. They wanted to be able to build these, but use a framework. They didn't want to have to hand roll all their scripts. They didn't want to have to manage all the dependencies by themselves. They didn't want to have to do everything. So they wanted to build service applications, but they wanted to do it easier. So around came this little creature, SAM, the AWS Serverless Application Model. And the people were happy. But then we also came around a little bit later, and we had this little creature who's pancakes the otter, and we have Sam the squirrel. And this is the AWS Cloud Development Kit. And you've probably heard of this one. You've probably heard of both. If you're at this particular event, you've probably heard of the Cloud Development Kit. And we're going to dive into that a little more, but we're going to do it and talk about SAM. Now, both solutions, they came in and said, we both provide infrastructure as code. Right, we're based on AWS Cloud Formation. We use that for deployment, and they have different ways of handling it. They both provide a CLI for creating and deploying applications. They work with non-serverless resources. Did you know that? I'm sure you did with CDK. With CDK, you can build all kinds of stuff on AWS Cloud using CDK, but also with SAM. SAM, because it's built on top of Cloud Formation, you can build all kinds of stuff. So both did that, and they're both open sourced. But it was still a single life for our 2 characters. AWS SAM and AWS CDK did some things similarly, did some things differently. AWS SAM uses JSON or YAML templates to declare resources. AWS CDK uses familiar programming languages like Python or Node, different things like that. AWS SAM uses pseudo-parameters and logical functions for dynamic references. You get the region, get things like that. AWS CDK has a lot of these references as well, and then also uses native language capabilities for dynamic references where I can loop through building Lambda functions and things like that. And AWS SAM enables local invocation of Lambda functions via the AWS SAM CLI. However, the AWS CDK at this time does not do this. So, being smart like CDK folks were, they said, you know what? We should get to know AWS SAM. And so we had our first date with the CDK Synthesize. And what the CDK Synthesize allows you to do is you can synthesize out a CloudFormation template right out of CDK that allows you to use the AWS SAM CLI for local debugging and testing. And it's a great product. However, developers tell us that there's still that's an extra step they weren't wanting to take, right? So they had to go in, they synthesize it, and then they need to go in and find the logical names and things like that. So we had our first challenge, right? And the developers told us they want local development tools regardless of which of these frameworks they choose, and they want to be able to do it as easily as possible. And both the CDK team and the SAM team want to provide that. So we had our first makeup and we listened. We listened to the developers. We heard them saying, look, we want it to be easier. We want it to be more seamless. And so today, and actually last night, if you've been reading the blogs or you saw the tweets go out, we have this huge announcement, the AWS SAM CLI support for local testing of AWS CDK projects. And this is, dare I say the word natively, you're able to use these without synthesizing out a template. AWS SAM is going to work within a CDK project directly or natively, and it's going to work seamlessly, meaning I'm not going to have to change anything in the CDK project. It's just going to work, with the structure and the setup. So let me talk a little bit more about what this means. It means that regardless if I'm using SAM or CDK, I have access to SAM Build, SAM Local Invoke, SAM Local Start API, SAM Local Start Lambda, SAM Local Generate Event. There's a little asterisk there because you already have access to this, but you may not have installed SAM to work with CDK projects. So you can do SAM Local Generate Event and SAM Logs. And these are all tools for local development and debugging. So now we have a celebration. And by that, we're going to see it in action. I'm going to spend some time demoing this project so you can see what it does. So first of all, before we jump in, I want to tell you about the application that we built. All right. So the application is a translation application, which tends to be what I build a lot because I like using these. And the way it's going to work is, number one, a user sends in a string of text and an array of languages, and they're going to send that, and it's going to get sent from the API gateway to a Lambda function. The Lambda function then makes a request to Amazon Translate to translate that string of text into each of those languages. It then comes back, and at this point, it's going to do two things. First, it's going to push those translations onto an event bus, an event bridge event bus, and then it's going to return the translations to the user. So it's a synchronous call for the user, and they get it back immediately. However, we're going to do some asynchronous work on this as well. By putting those events on the bus, it's then going to invoke another Lambda function, which puts those translations into DynamoDB as separate records. Then later it's available through requests where a user could come in, they can hit the API endpoint, and they can get those translations. So we have this application. Now why did I do it on an event bus? I wanted to do this asynchronously because I may do more than just translate the Lambda functions. I may take those translations and actually turn them into audio recordings, or I may do sentiment recordings. So by using EventBridge, I have a bus that I can trigger where I can invoke more than one Lambda function based on the rules. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to drop this out of here, do some very secret moving around of my stuff. Okay. Bear with me one moment. I seem to have a PowerPoint that's not releasing. There we go. All right. So let's jump into some code. Oh, I'm telling you, my machine seems to be giving me a hard time. Matt, you're not the only one. Your green screen's bad. My machine seems to be fighting me on this. All right, so I'm using Visual Studio Code here. I have a CDK project already. Now, I'm going to be full disclosure straight up front. I am not a CDK expert. I look like it, I get that, but I am not a CDK expert. However, I was able to quickly build an application. I love it. Like I said, I am a SAM fan. I'm also a CDK fan, and I like using the right tool for the job. And they're very comparable, and they approach things a little differently. All right, so looking at our project, real quick, I'm going to show you in here. It's the, and I know this is huge. I hope that's not too big. I'm going to show you the structure is a standard. I use CDK init with this. It is a TypeScript one, and we're going to go to my live folder, and I'm going to show you the CDK template. Let's drop this out so you can see it. Now, this is a pretty standard one. Now, here's one thing to understand is at this moment in time, the SAM integration that I'm going to show only works with the AWS Lambda construct. It does not work at the moment with the Node construct and the Python construct, but those are forthcoming. And I'm going to be talking about dependency management here using SAM, but you can also do dependency management using the Node construct and the Python construct. So clarify on that. All right, so you can see here, I'm just building some standard resources, the event bridge, everything's in here that I need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy this. And actually, I've already deployed it. Now, you may be saying, whoa, hang on a sec. If this is for local development, why do I have to deploy it? You don't have to deploy the project for local development to work. However, in a regular serverless application, in a real-life serverless application, we interact with serverless services with our Lambda functions, right? So a Lambda function may call out to DynamoDB or EventBridge, much like my example application does. And so in developing, we want that local Lambda function to be able to talk to the services. Well, they have to be deployed. So I'm going to deploy at minimum, get my infrastructure out there, my DynamoDB table, my EventBridge that I need for those out there. I could deploy the Lambda functions as well because I have some asynchronous stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is to deploy that, I'm going to go ahead. The first thing I'm going to do is do SAM build. Now I want to show you really quick here back to our structure is if you look in the actual source file here, it's so big I'm having a hard time getting it. So here's my function. In my function, I do not have any dependencies in here. With SAM, the way that SAM is going to work with this is I don't have to manage those dependencies from CDK or manually. I can do them within SAM. So let's take a look at that real quick here. All right. So you can see, again, I have no dependencies, although I'm saying what dependencies I need. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell SAM to build it. Now, if you read the blog the other night, if you install this beta version, and this is a beta version, we'll talk more about that. If you install it, it's going to install side by side with the normal SAM client. So I have SAM on here, you can see. And then I also have SAM beta CDK. And you're gonna laugh because I fat finger all the time. Just the one finger, but I'm going to fat finger. All right, so both versions are on there. So I'm going to get rid of this. So back to our instructions here. I'm going to bring my terminal up so you can see that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the application. And what SAM's going to do is it's going to install all the dependencies. If it's a language that needs compiling, it's going to handle compiling like a .NET or a Java or something like that. And then it's going to export. And it also uses the actual CDK synth to grab the template. And then it's going to export all the assets in the Cloud Assembly, so that CDK has everything it needs to do the deployment. So let's go ahead and do that build. So I'm going to do SAM beta CDK build. And I'm going to do them in parallel if I can spell. I'm sure I spelled that wrong. So let's do that again. AL. This is painful to watch me do this, I'm sure, for folks. There we go. Parallel tells SAM that instead of doing one at a time, build them all at the same time. And that works if your machine has a little beef to it. If it doesn't, then you can also have it. It'll just do them one at a time. So, all right. Now, once that's built, and it's almost done, then you see here it says do a CDK deploy. So I can do a CDK deploy, but I'm going to point it to the Cloud Assembly that I want to use, and that's under the SAM build folder. So let's take a look at what SAM did. SAM actually went out here, and under the SAM build folder, there you go, we have our CDK out, which is what CDK would output. And then we have our build folder. And then SAM will actually group these by stack, right? Because CDK obviously manages multiple stacks. So it will actually output the different stack names. Under those are each of the assets that are needed. Okay, and so you'll notice now I have my dependencies in place. So I can use, and I also have the logical name of my function. So SAM has built those out and put those in place for the CDK to use. All right, so let's look at actually getting into developing and local development with that. Now that we kind of have everything in place, let's do that. The one last thing I want to show you before we do this is with SAM, and if we're using these services that are actually in the cloud, I'm going to use a local environments file folder. And I want to show you what that looks like really quick. Let me move this over. Whew. Okay, so pull my terminal down. I'm getting killed by all the sizes here. There we go. What this does is this tells the functions, and I address the function by stack name and function name. And this is the function identifier, the CDK that you put into CDK when you build the function. And then I tell the variable is that file or that table. So I have a table, I have a bus, and then another table. So this is going to tell any local function, Lambda function, hey, when you talk to the services of the cloud, this is the table name you want to use. This is the event bridge bus you want to use. All right, enough of that. Let's get started. So we built that, and I've already deployed it, but I could have done a deploy to kind of show that. So, and we'll probably do that at the end here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to, in this, I want to push a mock event onto DynamoDB. I want to actually do a request. And I'm going to do it. There's several ways I can use SAM to test things. I can directly invoke the Lambda function, or I can do it through an API gateway emulator. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do it by directly invoking the Lambda function. Excuse me. So to do that, I have a mock event that shows what an event would look like with through API gateway, because while we're invoking it directly, my code's expecting it to be in an API gateway event. So I have these mock events, and if you're wondering how in the world would I know what those look like? Well, earlier I said we have access to SAM local generate event. That function will actually generate these events out for you. So here's my data. Here's the request I'm making. Here's the body that's being sent, and this is the event I'm going to use. So the command to do this, and full disclosure, I'm not going to type all these commands. I'm going to be doing some cutting and pasting because we'd be here 4 times as long if I were typing them directly. That's just the truth of it. So, alrighty, because I'm not a fast typer and I misspell. So this command says I'm going to do SAM beta CDK local invoke, and the function I want you to invoke is found in the CDK day stack, and it's called put translation function. I'm going to do a -e or a -- event, and I'm going to say events put translation.json, which is the event I just showed you, and then I'm going to pass that locals variable file. Now, there's a lot to type there. I have a blog, and I'll shoot out a link to it a little bit later, that shows you how to put this information in a SAM config file, so that really all you would have to do is say just the local invoke and the function name. So there's a lot of optimization you can do with SAM and SAM build and all the SAM commands to do that. All right, so let's see what happens. So this is going to just create an event or create a translation request. So what happens is it's going to actually load up, happen kind of quick here, so I'll go down. It mounts the actual CDK day asset or WebAssembly, and then it invokes that and passes that event in just like API Gateway would have done. And I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to pass it to JQ so you can see the response a little cleaner. All right, and so now you can see I've made my request, which was, this is my text, very clever. I came up with that. The original language was English, and it translated it to French and German. Okay, so then I got those requests back. I didn't. I did. No, I did talk to DynamoDB in the cloud. It's actually, I'm sorry, the translate function in the cloud, and it got those translations back. But the entire invocation was done locally within the SAM CLI. Now, because I did use the cloud and I did write this to DynamoDB, and what's going to happen is, and my code actually puts it on the event bus, is the Lambda function in the cloud that's asynchronously triggered by EventBridge will have happened. So we can check that. And this one's job is to write this data to DynamoDB. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to locally invoke the function that does the get against this. Okay, so it's going to do a get request. Again, it's going to locally invoke the local function that reads the DynamoDB table. So let's see if that's out there. So this one, again, same format, SAM beta CDK local invoke. And this time I'm doing the GetTranslation function. And I'm going to pass the GetTranslation event with the locals. So if I do that, you can see my data is here. Now you may say, Eric, you ran that twice. Yeah, I ran it twice with the same ID, so it got overridden. So only one piece of data came back. All right. So I can do this. I can also do the GetAll. So I have a function that says GetAll translations, and it goes to the same Lambda function locally. And this will actually list all the original requests, which are just the English version. Okay. All right. So the last one I can do is I'm going to actually grab, I'm going to actually check so I told you asynchronously, when I submitted this data, it wrote that data to the event bridge. That event bridge has a rule that triggers or invokes a save Lambda function. I want to see what it looked like in the cloud because this isn't local. It's actually going through and working up in Amazon. So I can actually connect to that function using SAM logs. So with SAM logs, I'm going to do, and this is actually available now. I don't have to do SAM beta CDK, but I'm going to do SAM beta CDK logs, and then the name of the actual function, right? And this is when I do a deploy, this is output for me. And this says I want the logs from there. So rather than having to go out to CloudWatch immediately, I can see here, yep, it trace happened, it started, it ended. Here's the data that was written because I'm actually outputting that in a log, and there it is. So I can sit here and do that. And if I do a -T on that, it's actually going to tail that log. So if I went back and made more invocations, I'm going to get more data coming on here. A great way to debug locally of things going on in the cloud that are asynchronous that you want to follow. All right. So that is local invoking of the Lambda function directly. All right. So the next thing we want to do, and for a use case for that, generally what we're going to do is that's for quick iterations against code. I'm writing that Lambda function. I want to change it, and so I'm going to iterate against that. All right. So the next thing here is we're going to look at local start API. So what this does is the local start API actually starts a API gateway emulator that wraps that Lambda function. Now, it doesn't do everything API gateway does, but it does enough for you to iterate against your code and test that it's working. It works with REST APIs and HTTP APIs. So let's go ahead and start that. Now, while that's starting, I'm going to explain this command. The command was SAM beta. Here it is. Oh, it got out of view just a minute here. The command was SAM beta CDK local start API, and then I pass this flag called warm containers, and I give it a value of eager. So what that tells SAM to do is load each of these endpoints up in a container and keep it hot or keep it warm, depends on how you like to say it, so that the invocations happen fast, right? So they can happen quick against it, right? So what I'm going to do is I can actually do another window here, and I'm going to test that. So I've got this local emulator. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put another piece of another translation in here, as if through an API gateway. Okay, so I'm going to curl. I'm going to pass the data. I'm going to pass the translations. I'm changing the message a little bit. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And you saw over on the left side, you immediately saw my API gateway react, my emulator react. And then on the right side, I've got data back that says, hey, that translation went through. All right. So the next thing I can do is I'm going to list all the translations that are happening. Again, I'm just using curl, but your client can be your local. You could be running a spa locally to test against this, just pointing at this API gateway. I use Postman all the time as my local client to test this. But because this is CDK day and a lot of smart folks watching, I wanted to do curl and look cool. That's just the truth. All right. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually list all the requests that have been, or all the translations that have been done so far. Okay, so I've got that. You can see the response here. I'm going to actually pipe that to JQ so you can see that a little clearer. And you notice API Gateway is responding very quickly, right? Okay, so now I've got this translation and it's got an ID. Okay, and again, this returns only the English or the original request at the moment. So I want to actually get the full translation of this statement. So I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to add my ID. In quote, and let's see what that looks like. And there you go. So now I've got all the translations that were put in for that phrase. Again, I haven't deployed anything else. This is just simply working locally. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is I want to change. You'll notice in here, I'm going to push this real quick. I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to list it or pipe it to JQ so we can see it a little easier. Notice in here, I don't have the language set for the translation that was put in. This should say that it's English, but it's just the ID in the I'm sorry, that's not the one I wanted to do. Let me try that again. Get rid of the ID. I know all of you are thinking right now, he could have up-arrowed twice. That's not how I work. All right, there we go. So now you see in here that I've got the different translations, but it doesn't show the language they were put in. And I really wanted to show that. So I'm going to go back to my code. So this is us iterating against our code, right? And I'm going to go to that function, which is the GetTranslation function, and I'm going to comment out. So I'm deleting that, okay? So I'm actually going to comment out that line. Okay, I'm going to save that. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, you're going to have to restart the API because it's an emulator. I really don't. All I need to do is I need to build again. I can't talk and type, so bear with me one more. You're like, why are you a presenter? Well, there is that. Okay, so I'm going to build that again. I want you to watch the left side when I do this build. How you doing? Spelling's bad. All right. I talked to Stefano, who's in charge of the team that's building this, and they're actually going to put BEUILD too, because I always type it that way. It's probably not the best workaround. Okay. Finding the right word. Okay, there we go. SAM beta CDK build. Boom. There we go. So now it's synthesizing the app again. It's creating that template. It's going to build out these changes and copy those back into the Cloud Assembly that I can use with my CDK application here. And notice over here, Sam picked up and said, oh, hey, the code has changed. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, next time you invoke that, I'm switching to lazy mode for this next invoke. Next time you invoke it, I'm going to re-up that code, right? So let's go ahead and run the list again, okay? It re-upped that code, so it took just a little longer that time, but now my language is in there. So hopefully you're getting the idea of how fast you can iterate against these different things, right? So you're able to come in and say, look, I'm going to iterate against my Lambda, go. I'm talking to remote services, and it's going to work fine. The other command that you're able to do is the local start Lambda. We're not going to go into that one today just for time reasons, but this one allows you to do testing with local, like if I were testing from an SDK or the AWS SAM CLI. And there's a blog, and I'll mention the blog here or a link to the blog here in a moment, but that kind of walks you. If you want to try this on your own, you can walk through all this as well. And it'll show you that. So, all right. So let me get, my PowerPoint for some reason died on me. So I've got to kind of figure out what's going on here. See if we can bring it back up. Oh, man. Please bear with me. I apologize. All right. Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what I was going to show on there. I'm not missing a whole lot at the moment, but let me just close PowerPoint. There we go. All right. Technical difficulties are always the joy of our job. And yeah. All right. Okay. So coming out of that, now I'll be answering questions. Oh, someone said not a demo if everything gets planned. Well, that's true, but not true. I disagree a little bit. It's still a demo. It's showing how everything works. It just keeps me from having to type everything. So, but that's okay. Yeah, it's absolutely okay on how you want to approach that. So, all right, let me open this back up. And it's not open. I'm telling you, PowerPoint has just completely died. So I'll tell you what we're doing. So what I'm going to do, if you look up, I want to talk to you about how we're approaching the build on this. So what we're trying to do is, this is an open source, and that means that we want both the CDK community and the SAM community to help us build this, you know, in the way they want to see it, right? That in what they want to see. No features too small. No bug, or no bug is too small. No features too big to do this. And look at here, I finally got it working while I'm talking. All right, so that's the end of the demo here, and so let's go on. So again, like I said, the plan is with the AWS SAM CLI and the CDK as well. And I'm not speaking for the CDK team, but I know they want to meet developers where they are, regardless of the framework that we're building. We want to focus on fast, intuitive tools for serverless development. And these two services work. It really is a marriage that they work together, and they work well in doing that. They're both open source tools. Again, no bug is too small, no features too big. We want input from both communities. Really encourage you to do that. If you want to help with the open source, you can go to s12d.com, SAM CLI, or this QR code. All of our PR requests are done there. All the issues are handled there. Be part of the family. Be part of the family of this, this union here, this love story. This is the blog. If you want to run this demo yourself and kind of walk through it and see how these work, s12d.com/better together. I encourage you to check that out and see how that works. For more information like this, we maintain a thing called serverlesslane.com. It's a website that has lots of stuff. Again, I'm Eric Johnson. I'm a principal developer advocate for serverless at AWS. You can find me at EDJ Geek. And I know we're right at time, and we're going to be moving on to the next one here shortly, but I'm going to be taking questions. You can hit me on Twitter. You can hit me, anywhere you want, but Twitter's probably the best at edjgeek.com. I hope you enjoy the rest of CDK Day. The team has worked very hard. This is an amazing setup, and we're excited to have you. And with that, let's move into our next one. Now, we have a weird transition here, because not only am I doing the first session, but I'm also hosting. So now I'm back into host mode, and I'm looking here real quick to see if we have any questions. Thank you for doffing your cap to me. I appreciate that. And thank you. My enthusiasm is bought and traded on Diet Dr. Pepper. That's not a lie. All right. So next up, we are going to have, bear with me one second here. All right. So the next one we have is Ben Britz. Ben, are you in here? I see him. I'm going to bring him in. Ben, what's up?
Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Oh, I like your shirt.
Thanks. I like yours too, although it's a little bit hidden.
Yeah. I need to get, here. It's the SAM plus, there you go. Very cool. So, Ben, what are you going to be talking about today?
I'm going to be talking about all the things I did wrong when I wrote infrastructure code, especially focused on. Sorry?
If it helps you, I have a list of things you've done wrong. So that's up to you. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to drop out. Nicole, you doing all right? All right. We got the salute and the thumbs up. So, okay. Here we go. I'm going to drop out, and I'm going to bring your screen in, and good luck, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben. I work for a company called Cloudar, and I also have some stories to tell. I'm mostly here because I made a lot of mistakes. And I don't mean that giving this talk is a mistake, but I've been writing infrastructure code for 6 years and a bit now. with a lot of different tools, CloudFormation and things that generate CloudFormation like Troposphere and the toolset around that, even before CDK was a thing. And in those 6 years, I had the chance to make a lot of mistakes. And if there's one thing that's better than learning from your own mistakes, it's being able to learn from somebody else's mistakes. So I'm going to try to tell some of those things that went wrong when I tried things. I have to mention a few things before I get started. All of these are actual real examples of mistakes that actually happened, but I recreated them all with CDK code. So that means that one, I had to simplify it a bit so it would fit in on the slide and you wouldn't have to like get a magnifying glass just to read the code. So if your first reaction to something that I put on the screen is, why would you do it that way? It's probably because some context is missing. But feel free to ask a question. After the talk, we will have 10 minutes for questions and we can go into that. Secondly, every mistake that I will show and I will talk about is one that I made. I'm not trying to throw any shade at anyone. So if this seems like something that's familiar to you, something that you might have done, I'm sorry, it happens to the best of us apparently, but I'm not trying to single anyone out. And thirdly, I'm going to be saying we and I a lot. If I say we and it's about something good, it's definitely something that we did as a team. If I say we and it's something bad, I should have said I, and I'm sorry for that. So that being said, let me tell you about some of the things that I actually wouldn't do again. And the first example that I'm going to be looking at is a migration that happened. So we had a lot of servers that had to move to AWS. It was going to be mostly a lift and shift migration. So we needed to be setting up a lot of EC2 servers. And there was a strict deadline. So we decided we're going to make it as easy as possible for every team that needs their own servers. So they can start as soon as possible, move as much as possible to the cloud before we hit that deadline. And we might want to make that possible even if they don't have a lot of AWS experience. So we decided we need something like this, where every team should be able to define their own stack, put a list of instances in there, and then we would have some code, in the CDK case, a construct that would take care of all the details. And the details would be putting, starting the instance, putting everything on there, having alarms and monitoring around that, making sure that integrates with all the other tools that were already being used. And the only thing that the team would have to put in is names, because we're using, in this case, configuration management software. So the moment that an instance would start, there would be some software on there that would fetch the name, see, oh, this one is an app server, and then install the right thing on there. If it's a web server, install Nginx. If it's an app server, install Tomcat, for example, things like that. So we created our construct called instance group. The my server's name here is arbitrary. The team can pick whatever they want. And then they would give a list of servers they want to start. In this case, we have 2 app servers, 2 web servers. And this is a code that we wrote to actually do the heavy lifting. So we know which VPC we want to use. In this example, we're using the default one, but that would be one that was created externally. We have a default AMI that also has all the bootstrapping software on there. And we pass that to the instance. And you can see here that we get that list of names passed into the construct, and then we just loop over them and create one EC2 instance for every name. The final thing that we actually have to put in there is which availability zone they go into. And for that, we do a little trick because we don't want them all to go into the same subnet or the same availability zone. And that's what actually would happen if you have them all in the same stack, because the CDK will pick always the same availability zone. So we want to have them spread out over availability zones for 2 reasons. If they're creating app 1 and app 2, we want to have them spread out so we have high availability there, because it might be putting that in a load balancer later on in the stack. And also because if we wouldn't do that, then all the instances would end up in the same subnet. We would run out of IPs in that subnet, while the other one or two subnets would be still empty. So that's the reason that we wrote this code like this, and this is what we're using as our construct. And if we synth and deploy our stack, this is the YAML output that would get passed to CloudFormation, or at least part of it. I hid most of the other properties to make it fit here. And you can see that we create two sets of two servers. We have the two app servers at the top, the two web servers at the bottom, and we go A, B, C, A, spread out over our 3 availability zones. And that all worked great, so far so good. We've successfully finished the migration. We hit that